I'd like to call this regular city council meeting of April 27, 2015 to order. We'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call shows that we actually have two council people missing tonight. Both have contacted us. Of course, Bev would be bereavement and then work-related for Aaron. So, what's your pleasure?
I'll make the motion for Bev.
I'll second and also make a motion. Do we have to vote one at a time?
Yeah, we'll just go ahead and do that. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, go ahead.
And I'll make the motion to excuse Aaron.
I'll support.
Okay, for discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So it's like the old days. We have five-person council, which we had for about 30, 40 years, until a few years ago it got switched. Approval of the minutes. We have two different minutes to approve. As one of them was dealt with when we had the budget meeting.
The regular minutes on page 4, toward the top, Lee says you have silk fence, and it actually is silt. Yeah.
If we forced them to put in silk fence, we would be pushing it a little bit.
That would probably screen it, but that's not the stuff. And toward the bottom, on the bottom, actually, it was, it's supported, not purported by Kivel on that bottom line. These are kind of,
Typos,
cheesy, but
yeah.
And actually, Harvey had seconded or supported the motion at the top for the ZBA member of Frank Fogarty, so. That's all I wrote.
I had something too. In the thank you part of the minutes, I also thank Sue Mart, and I wanted her to list it in the minutes too, for the water, for the creek cleaning and working with the water department as she does.
I moved the minutes as amended.
I'll second.
Further discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Now the 18th, which would be the budget meeting.
I move those minutes.
I'll support.
Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Okay, we do not have bills to approve, and so we can go to the approval of the agenda. Is there any additions or deletions?
Not at this time.
I'll move the agenda.
I'll support.
For discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Public comment. At this time, anybody wishes to speak on any item not listed on our agenda, this is your moment to do so and state your name and address. Come up here, please.
Councilman. Mayor, my name is Nick Kennedy. I am the constituent district representative for Congressman Dave Trott, and continuing to keep what's informed and happening in South Lyon. The last time I was here, I forgot to give you my phone number just for your record. So if any of your residents want to know if they need to contact their congressman, our phone number is area code 248-528-0711, and we look forward to serving all of you. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
It's a long drive for a phone number.
Everything's necessary.
You left us your card.
Yeah.
If you have any questions, I'll take those.
Yeah.
Hi, my name's Heather Dixon, and I'm with the American Cancer Society. And we have your approval to paint the town purple in May. We wanted to say thank you, but we also wanted to let everybody know in the city of South Lyon that May 19th we'll be putting up purple ribbons and signs downtown just promoting the Relay for Life, which is actually May 30th at Millennium Middle School. So if anybody in town would like to come out and support us that day, we have lots of fun events, good food, and lots of fun people out there.
Now, you say on May 19th or on the relays themselves, you mean?
Relay themselves, yes.
Which is what date again?
May 30th. It's a Saturday.
Mm-hmm. And that's where you stay all night and
Yes,
like a 24-hour,
yes, 24-hour fun time. Yep,
hope you have the weather.
I know, me too. Fingers crossed for that, so.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
for what you do on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Chad Corliss. I'm from Canton, Michigan. We're holding a nonprofit animal foundation fundraiser out at Northwood Bar and Grill. We're requesting, since we are a nonprofit just starting out, that the application fee possibly be waived.
How much is the fee?
$50.
You want to give us some more details? Is that simply what your request is? And
I've never done this before.
I salute you then.
You should have an email in front of you that he sent to Clerk Deaton with some preliminary details on the event.
We have 3 bands coming in from Nashville.
Well, that's why I want you to just go ahead and promote it,
okay.
because you are being televised right now. So this is your chance to promote.
No pressure.
We are having 3 bands from Nashville come in to perform during the night. During the day, we're going to have a car show, an adoption event, and kids' bounce houses from 10 to 4:30, and then the concert starts at 7,
And that is on what date again?
July 25th.
And also, you're saying you're staging most of this will be done out in that area?
It will be done outdoors, correct?
I'm sorry, where was the
Mr.
location?
Mayor,
The old Rhino Club.
point of procedure as far as the application, none of this has been run by, approved, or submitted to either the police or the fire department.
Okay, and then that would be your next step, and he'll have you fill out the proper paperwork for that.
Okay.
And then as far as waiving anything, by then we will,
Yeah,
you know,
that's the
have it-
first step, right?
yeah, just get it in front of us more officially, so to speak.
Okay.
I know you're kind of touching base and saying what you'd like to do, and that's good. I mean, personally, I hope it works out very well for you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
normally they would need to pay the application fee when they present the application in the event.
Oh,
That's what he's asking council to waive,
oh, I see.
to get it started.
Well, I want a chance to look at what the heck the thing is before I make any kind of judgment on that, so.
Yeah, when is the event?
July 25th?
Yeah, I think you have a little time. Do you have the application? Is it online or is it,
No, that's not filled out yet. Usually that's done when they pay the fee.
okay.
And then they present the plans, and it goes through our building department and fire and police.
Let me see how the band does. Well, guys, personally, my opinion is that it is certainly a cause that they need every dime they can get. Not
What
have-
is the cause? I mean, I don't know
It's,
anything about
it's right
this.
here. I'm looking at it.
Yeah, but what,
To save dogs' lives, abandoned,
We're a nonprofit animal rescue shelter,
okay.
all foster-based at the moment, trying to raise money to build a shelter.
Where is the shelter being built?
Location has not been determined yet. We're, strictly foster-based, but we service from Canton, pretty much all the way down to Toledo, all the way out to Lansing.
Are you guys a 501c3?
We are 501c3.
Well, I mean, they've got credentials on, so
Yeah, I don't have a
I guess
problem.
I can live with it.
Do we have to, I mean,
this is during public comment. When can we
Right.
do this?
You would normally have to follow your council rules to amend the agenda, to add this as an action item for tonight, which would require tonight would be a unanimous vote. And you could
Yes.
take action on it, or you could ask that it be placed on the agenda for the following council meeting.
Does a 2-week delay hurt you?
No?
Okay. Thank you. You can't
That
put it
solves
aside.
our issue, so.
Yeah.
And then,
Procedurally, we're good.
can you do that, put it on, Lisa?
Yep, Lynn, for 2 weeks, and then we'll put it on the next agenda.
Yep.
All right.
Great.
Thank you.
I believe it's May
11th.
11th, right after Mother's Day. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, we move on to old business number 1. Consider bringing forth from the table motion to approve amendment to the City of South Lyon ordinance adding regulation concerning the medical use of marijuana and related land uses and activities.
Mr. Mayor, if I may. So this would initially, I believe it was in March, council tabled this matter to have me prepare some additional language. So it would be a motion to remove from the table the second reading of the ordinance to amend it would be an amendment to the zoning ordinance to add regulations relating to the medical marijuana, land use, and other activities.
So to begin with, we would have to make a motion to remove the second reading from the table, right?
Correct.
All right, since I made the original motion to table it, I'll make the motion to remove the second reading from the table.
I'll second it.
Okay, further discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose?
So now it's back before us. It was moved and seconded, it's now back before us for discussion.
Correct. So we are, before council would be a proposed second reading of an ordinance. And if you recall, the issue related to section 102-499M relating to the right of inspection. And my initial concern was that we not include any language that would conflict with a provision within the Medical Marijuana Act. Upon further research, I think you need to have something that allows for, in this ordinance, that allows the city a right of inspection. So really the question becomes, what type of limitations or language do you want to use to deal with that issue? Unfortunately, Councilmember Kopkowski's not here. This was, I think, primarily raised by her. And I didn't get a call from her today. I did try to reach out to her to find out whether she had any preference on any of these alternatives. So basically what I've done is, and I found what was interesting is in my research, the medical marijuana industry that seems to surround the caregivers and patients doesn't seem to publicly come out and say that they're opposed to an inspection right if you hold these licenses or have a zoning approval such as we're proposing here. So I thought that was somewhat interesting. I didn't provide counsel, but I did receive one proposed type ordinance. I don't know if it's considered a model ordinance, but it was proposed at one of the other communities that someone in my office represents. And it clearly has language that's very similar to what's been proposed. So the alternatives would be to adopt the ordinance, including the language in subsection M as originally proposed. The second option would be to delete that. That would not be my recommendation. The third, fourth, and fifth are different flavors of how to modify and somehow limit the right of inspection that the city might have for a medical marijuana caregiver growing facility if a special land use approval were given. So the first one is to add the phrase upon reasonable notice. That is a kind of a nebulous term. It's vague, but it's intentionally so, and it would require an analysis of facts and would still give the city a right to go in, but it might be as simple as if you ask that day, you can get in that day, kind of thing. I've seen other cities and communities do during business hours, 8 to 5, but that tends to be in the context of more of a dispensary or other uses where there are specific designated business hours. You could have that. Again, the premise here is that these caregiver growing facilities would be primarily limited to the caregiver, him or herself. So there really shouldn't be any other reason that other people are in this facility. And therefore, I don't think it's it's going to have traditional business hours in the normal sense. So I'm not sure that is an alternative that works real well. The other one I've seen is to make it available for inspection upon, within a period of time. You can only inspect once per week, per month, semi-annually or annually. I think that would be a mistake. I think to the extent that you had the city conduct that type of search and then were limited by a time period, if you receive information that would necessitate another inspection, you then have to go through the normal constitutional procedures of obtaining a search warrant and proceeding that way. So my recommendation would be either the original language or alternative 3.
Yes, go ahead, Art.
Thank you. I was comfortable with the original language, and I had no reason to think that the officials of the city of South Lyon, including the police department, would abuse this privilege to inspect those sites. They need to be inspected because the laws are pretty clear. So I'm very comfortable with the ordinance as it was originally presented to us.
Ted,
Go ahead, Mike.
procedurally, if we were going to keep if we approve the second reading, it would be as presented from the first reading, correct? Which included subsection M?
I think you can clarify whether you're going to change it at all. It's still a second reading. I did do some research on this, and there's no reason to go through the process of a first and second reading. This is a relatively minor change. It's been delayed slightly due to the tabling, but you're still at the stage of a second reading. And approval of the ordinance for a second reading would then mean that ordinance is adopted and effective upon publication consistent with your charter.
So procedurally, if I made the motion then to approve the second reading, would I have to include alternative number 1, or can I just rely on the subsection M that we used in the first reading? It doesn't make it, is it 6-1,
I'm not
half
sure
dozen?
I'm not sure there's any magic. I think you just want to make sure in the motion which language you're going to use in the ordinance, which language you want. For example, if you were to do the weekly, monthly, you'd want to specify what that limitation is.
All right, go ahead.
We have a motion before us that's been moved and seconded. If we're going to modify it, it would have to be an amendment to that motion.
Right, because the first motion, when the first reading included subsection M.
And the motion on this was the second reading
Well, but
in total.
no, it's my well, and maybe I need to be corrected, but it was my understanding that the motion was to table. There
Yeah.
was no motion to
That's all
approve
we've
the second
done
reading.
so far today.
So they're
Okay.
really,
Motion to table,
technically,
not-
the matter is
Right,
pending.
that's right, that's right.
All right, I'm
That's why I
corrected,
was
thank you.
wondering where you're going
All
from.
right, I'm
yeah.
corrected, thank you.
Okay.
We've done that, and we have voted to untable it, so now we're talking about it.
Right,
That's fine.
okay, yep, you're right.
The forewarning aspect, in the event that there was some mischief, you could already ask for a warrant to search if you had probable cause. So, the idea that you would have an officer that was sitting outside waiting, watching to see if any mischief took place until such time as the agreed upon inspection would take place. If that were the case, you would just be going in there anyway with a warrant, so.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
a response. Obviously, the police department would advocate for alternative 1, leaving the language as originally written. And again, I'll go back to the analogy of the liquor licensed establishments. We have the right to inspect them. We don't call ahead and say, oh, by the way, we're coming to inspect you. We walk in the door, do our inspection as unobtrusively as possible, and leave. And that's exactly how I envision this. Absent finding some major violation, 10, 20, 30 plants above the allowed limit,
I was gonna say,
we'd be in and out, and there would be no big deal.
Now, there was no information provided on the bookkeeping aspect of it. I had asked, in the event that they had lost a client or something, and there was still a carryover of materials in there that was associated with that client. There was no reference to any of that, what the probable response or result of that kind of activity would be.
Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Yes.
I believe I had a provision where if the caregiver lost their approval to be a caregiver and lost their registry card for whatever reason, they were required to notify the city of that. So really, back to the bookkeeping, because of the confidentiality issues that are contained within the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act, looking at other communities and thinking about it, I did not want the city to be accumulating a list of so you have an applicant who is a caregiver. They want to be at a specific location. I did not want the city to be accumulating and gathering information regarding the registered patients to that.
Nor do I.
Because of the confidentiality issues. And really what it boils down to is, again, you fall within you have to go through LARA, the Licensing and Affairs Department for the state of Michigan, and contact that body to determine whether a caregiver, how many patients they have, and that would allow you to determine how much medical marijuana or usable marijuana they could have under the act.
The point of my question had been, how much leeway is there between the state being given notice that they've lost one of their patients and us being made aware of that? So is this something where we have to actively monitor?
No, you have to actively seek the information through that state department.
That's what I'm getting at, monitor that information from the state. So we're the ones that have to pursue it as opposed to being given notice that, I don't care what the guy or girl's name is, I want to know if you can carry 6 clients, I guess it is. Yeah, if you can carry 6.
Including him or herself.
Including himself, and one of them drops out, so then we're gonna, before Lloyd does an inspection, I guess it'd be prudent for us to end up getting, checking Lara and finding out how many patients they are justified in servicing then.
Or it may be after the fact. You go in, you do your inspection, you count plants, weigh usable marijuana, and then you contact Lara at a later date to determine whether that's over or within the limits of the act.
Well, if we're doing an inspection,
You may do
wouldn't
it
it be
up front.
prudent to have notice of what he's allowed at that time when you go in? So,
I would leave that to Chief Collins.
But how do we?
I would advocate making contact with the regulatory body first so we know the number of allowed plants. If we were to go in there and find 12 or 24 extra plants, we would do two things. We would confiscate the number that was over the legal limit, and then we would charge them.
You used your comparison to the liquor stores. I don't see it being the same, because the liquor stores are open to the public, where this facility is not open to the public. It has its 5 or 6 set customers, and that's it. And I don't see that reasoning about going to a liquor store and compare. I don't see how the two are the same. Personally, I'd like to at least see alternative number 3 be used.
what do you see as the benefit of that?
It gives, the police still have a right to go in there, but it's upon reasonable notice. What is reasonable notice? That's what's got to be decided.
That's what the litigation's gonna be about.
Yeah.
Because if you walk in there and you make a phone call before you walk in, and we're saying that's reasonable notice, and they're charged with something.
Well,
say
that'd
they
be a
have
hard
extra-
argument for them to be able to sustain, though. I mean,
What comes to the reasonable notice, what constitutes reasonable notice? I
what's the
understand.
difference? It doesn't really make any difference. I mean, if you take M, the original language, they don't have to get any notice. So at least we're giving them some kind of a heads up. So, I mean, I don't really see the benefit in it, but that's kind of what I was alluding to. If we were to take that alternative, then Lloyd could have people stationed there in the event all of a sudden a vehicle ends up leaving the facility, that just an hour before they were supposed to have had the inspection, that might warrant having a look at what they've got in their
Well,
van.
but then you have to have probable, I mean, you have to have cause
Then,
to.
then we've
make
run
a
into
stop.
probable cause issues to search the vehicle.
Yeah. So it's a situation where, and then plus,
You can keep eyes on that vehicle, I guess.
Well, if they're bringing up a hay baler, we know they got something going on
Yeah,
there.
right.
right, and then there's resources, I mean, available resources. You're gonna have to take somebody off patrol, you're gonna have to take somebody, put them out there before you do the the walk-in.
It's handcuffing the wrong people.
Personally, I don't see any, if it were, I can imagine some communities that might end up being an issue, but I really don't think that there's going to end up being any tendencies for abuse of this myself, so.
Plus, we could always tweak it later, I mean, if there is an issue.
Yeah, true enough, right, yeah.
I had another question. Are we gonna be sure there's only gonna be one of these in the building as far as persons with the right to do this?
Yeah.
Can they do a
But-
co-op and have several in there?
There's a distancing requirement between these types of facilities.
That's
So you have
why
to
I
be-
don't even see anybody even doing this. I don't see how it's feasible to rent a warehouse for 72 plants. It just doesn't jive and
Well, you could commingle with another operation, though, if you had distinct barriers between your operation and theirs.
well, this is what he says you gotta have how many feet?
1,000 feet.
1,000 feet.
No, for another growing thing, but not another business.
That's what I'm talking about. So one warehouse can't turn into six businesses?
Not
Right.
growing facilities. I mean, you could have a landscaping company perhaps and this, or, someone that makes boxes or something. I don't know.
Okay.
Right, you could have other businesses.
Yeah.
As long as it's on the caregivers in a
Which could
secure
make it
facility.
Financially viable to do in a
Right.
building then, yeah.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
So just so I'm clear, will this also be allowed in residential areas for individuals? Or is it just the grow facilities?
Well, the caregiver, or if you recall, there's a distinction between caregivers and qualifying patients. The caregivers will be limited to the I-1 and I-2 districts as a special land use. Qualifying patients can grow in their own home, in their own residential setting, in compliance with the act.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to confirm. Okay.
We tabled the second.
All right. Any more discussion?
No, I'll make the motion to approve the second reading of the proposed ordinance amendment, proposed zoning ordinance amendment to add sections 102-494 through 102-502 to the City of South Lyon zoning ordinance, setting forth the regulations concerning the medical use of marijuana and related land uses and activities with alternative number 1.
I'll second.
Okay.
Okay, now further discussion?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've thought about this quite a bit, and I've really torn on this. I understand the law. I mean, I know that what Michigan has passed, but I also do know that we have passed a moratorium. What is it, 3 times now? And that's not out of our reach to do that again. We have a drug problem in South Lyon, and just me personally, and I know this is going to pass the board, but I don't really feel comfortable. Something doesn't sit well with me by passing this. I would rather prefer a moratorium, so I'm going to vote no on this.
Well, and then the alternative number 1, approve with the original subsection M.
Right.
Medical marijuana care growing shall be subject to by officers, including the police, to ensure compliance. In other words, they can go anytime they want.
Also, Mr. Mayor, if I may, I just want to draw the council's attention to, there is a slight additional modification to 102-499 sub A that clarifies that the special land use does not run with the land. So that would be included as, I didn't recall whether that was mentioned in the motion
It
or
was
not.
not,
No,
so,
should, yeah. You want to just amend that, Mike?
yeah, I'll just amend it to include that amendment to that subsection.
I'll second that as well.
Further discussion, again, personally, I'm not too happy with it using alternative number 1 in it, so I probably will vote no as well. Okay,
Can we have a roll call, Mr. Mayor?
Why?
This is a kind of a big vote for our community.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
DeWolf?
Yes.
Rizzi?
No.
Wallace?
no.
Widow?
Yes.
Kramer?
Yes.
Okay. Does that mean we're done with this?
Yep.
It's been going on for so long, I was in it just done? All right, then we go on to new business where we have a presentation from our engineering firm, HRC, on the roadway asset management plan. If our roads are assets, they're getting low interest right now.
Evening, folks. My name is John Booth, and I'm with Hubble, Roth, and Clark. I'm here tonight to talk about roadway asset management. With me tonight is Mike Darga. You might have seen him here for you folks a few other times. This might be my first formal presentation in front of you guys, so thanks for having me. Purpose of the presentation tonight is to share with you basically a condition assessment of your roadway that we did at the end of last year, and to start the dialogue about roadway condition and, more importantly, funding, because as we get through this presentation, you'll see that funding is going to be an issue. First slide. What is asset management? That is one organization's definition of asset management. Asset management is becoming more in vogue lately in the municipal sector. It's basically turning things from being reactive to proactive in your approach to assets. Bob Martin can confirm that with your wastewater treatment plant, because that's part of your permit for your wastewater treatment plant, as well as the word in the street is MDEQ is going to make that a requirement of your water, well, not your water treatment plant, but all water treatment plants as well. As everybody has to do more with less, they want you start knowing what you have out there and the condition and what it's going to take to replace and operate and maintain. I assume everybody has a copy of our draft asset management plan. I hope you read it. Hope you didn't fall asleep. The main thrust of the asset management plan was rating the roadways throughout the city. Back in August of 2014, someone from the DPW and someone from HRC drove every single section of city public road, rated those on a scale of 1 to 10, following the PACER manual. PACER stands for Pavement Surface Evaluation and Rating. It rates the roads from 1 to 10, 10 being the best condition, like a brand new paved road, number 1 being the absolute worst road, where a paved road's ready to go back to gravel condition. This kind of display here is helpful because it gives you a sense of what a number 10 road looks like, what a number 7, 4, and number 1 looks like, just as a frame of reference to kind of get a sense for what all those fancy numbers mean. We took all that information, put it into a program, and produced a map of the entire city. And I do realize, I apologize for the folks in the audience here, that this map is dreadfully small. Obviously, you can't read street names, but we're trying to get the city on one big, pretty picture so everyone kind of get a sense of what's going on. The roadways go from green to red as you progress from 10 to 1. Every segment of roadway was rated, and while there's a lot of different colors on that particular exhibit, we boiled it down to a picture that's pretty easier to decipher, easier to look at and glean the information out visually. These exhibits are contained in your draft report. I'll point out that we took the 1 through 10 and grouped them into good, fair, and poor ratings, with the good roadways being shown in green, the fair roadways being...
This is videoed, and when you walk away from the mic, it's very difficult for the people watching it to
Thank you.
hear what you're saying.
Keep that in mind. Thank you. The good roadways are in green, the fair roadways are in yellow, and the poor roadways are in red. And what you can glean from this large, a small picture of the large view of the city is you see a lot of yellow, a lot of red, and not a lot of green. If I drop this in. That little graphic shows you that 2% of the roads within the city are rated as good, 70% are rated as fair, 28% are rated as poor. Depending if you're an optimist or a pessimist, if you're an optimist, you can say that 72% of the roads within the city are rated from good to fair. If you're a pessimist, you might conclude that there's 98% of the roads are fair to poor. So I'll leave that to individual interpretation. Last slide here. This entire asset management plan can be summarized by this one slide, one chart that is contained in the plan itself. What this chart shows is the average PACER rating of the city streets, how they progress over the next 10-year period, their forecast to project over the next 10-year period, depending on the level of funding that is invested within those roadways. The key lines will focus on the bottom line, the red line, that if $0 are expended in maintenance of roadways, and when I say maintenance, I don't mean filling potholes or plowing the streets or doing what Bob does on a regular basis. I'm talking about joint and crack sealing or overlaying pavements or reconstructing roadways. If $0 are spent in the next 10 years, the average PACER rating in the city of South Lyon will progress from, I believe, that's a 4.8 to 2.0. And keep in mind that a rating of 1 is basically a paved road going back to gravel status.
These are additional monies, not the Act 51 monies, correct?
This is, whether you consider that Act 51 money or additional monies, any money invested in maintaining the roadway. The next important line to kind of focus on is the green line, which represents an annual investment of $950,000 a year. Will effectively maintain the status quo. 5.9 rating today, in 10 years from now, keeps the same. If there's an interest in improving the roadway system within the city of South Lyon, if you invest $1.2 million annually, your average PACER rating 6.2 to 7.3. That's the level of effort it's going to take financially to improve the roadway system rather than just maintaining status quo. So back to my opening comments, the purpose of this presentation tonight is to throw this out there, get discussion going amongst council staff of the investment it needs to improve the roadways within the city of South Lyon. So with that, that's really the end of my brief presentation. Here to answer questions, do what I can to help along, and see where she goes.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Mike.
It's my understanding the Appendix B, as far as which roads require our attention sooner than later, that's a work in progress, and that will be supplied at a later date based on discussions that the city has with HRC, or how's that work?
It's based on the decision that's made at the council table as to how much money do you want to invest in the roads going forward. It's kind of a chicken and the egg. I can't tell you what's going to happen until you tell me how much dollars are invested. As soon as an amount is chosen, we plug it in the computer and it spits out on an annual basis how much preventative maintenance needs to be done, how much rehabilitation and how much reconstruction needs to be done to your roadways. So we need.
Sure. Do we have a guesstimate though, as far as, I mean, if you look at the map with the red showing the roads that are in poor condition, I mean, just to give us a ballpark estimate of what we're looking at to repair all those roads. I mean,
Just the reds?
Yeah, just the reds.
I don't have that dollar amount. I do have, excuse me one second.
I mean, because you're asking us to put money towards this project, and I completely understand that. The problem I'm having is I kind of like to have an idea if we were to replace, or, you know, just to put it in perspective, if we were to repair all those roads that are in red, what that would cost the city.
I don't have that exact number tonight with me. It can be obtained. I'm looking for one number in the report here. Give me a second. It was,
And assuming that, just
isn't it 7
filling in
million?
up potholes, but actually a resurfacing.
There it is. In the actual asset management report, if all the city of South Lyon streets were improved to very good or excellent condition, construction costs alone would exceed $7.5 million. So,
And that'd be for all roads?
that for all the city roads, yes. And keep in mind that obviously, we are aware, and asset management planning is aware that, sure, it'd be great if you'd had $7.5 million laying around to make those improvements. That's not a reality. Investing annually across the board, the program, the RoadSoft program that's referenced in this plan, divvies up the road, the money that's available to maintain, to do joint and crack sealing and some paint, certain amount of work that way, overlays, your simple rehabilitations, all the way to your heavy reconstructions. It spreads out your dollars across that gamut of those 3 different types of rehabilitation, 3 different types of work. Some years you might do a lot of reconstruction, other years you might not do any. That's the purpose of that program, is to tell you where to spend your money to try and maximize the maintaining the level of your PACER rating for the roadway, rather than, because in the past, traditionally, it's been take all your road money and dump it on your worst roads, bring those up to the best possible condition. 10 years down the road, you haven't done anything to that road you rebuilt 10 years ago, when you could have spent a few dollars maintaining its level at a higher level of service, instead of letting it degrade to the most costly form of rehabilitation, which is reconstruction. Hope that makes sense.
Are you square, Mike?
Yeah, I'll come back. Go ahead, Clint.
I think that the one real benefit from this, buying into this plan, is that it frees up the major streets money to be able to use where we want to use it. I mean, once it's been received by that, whatever that acronym was, TELC or something like that, and rather than only being able to use 50% of major street on local streets. That's a real help. The one shortcoming I see with this whole thing, I think it would be substantially more valuable to us if there was a component of how many vehicles per day are traveling on any stretch of road. That would have an awful lot more impact on an awful lot more people if we had that in the calculus of the condition of the road and how many people benefit from fixing that portion of road. And I think it'd be helpful too to date when activity takes place, so that some of these red roads that had been spoken to earlier, although you don't want to end up having anybody's road revert back to gravel, if there's 2 people that drive on that road, I'm okay spending that money a little later on in the repair cycle than if it were something that was well-traveled. So those 2 components, I think, really should, I have no idea how to do these algorithms or anything, but I think that would be an important thing if somebody were to come up with some calculation that formula was used, rather than simply the road condition, an assessment on the road condition itself. So
I'm amused that you've got Pontiac Trail yellow through town, which is considered fair. I don't think it's fair at all. I think
why is that? I mean, it's certainly not
well,
dangerous.
it's falling apart. It's starting to give away from the cement areas and stuff. You can see it, just walk it and drive over it.
Yeah, I do.
What's the,
Potholes and stuff that are developing.
what's the difference between non-structural overlay and structural overlay?
Basically just the thickness.
Well, I know, but I mean, they're using non-structural and structural. It's just an inch. It's the same, it's same resurfacing.
Same material, just it's a more aggressive, more costly repair is all it is between the 2.
During,
When that cap goes on, does that mean a mill and then 2 inches for a reconstruction, or is that simply an overlay on the existing?
It can be either or. That's kind of a judgment call based on the roadway at that given time when it's time to do the rehabilitation.
Yeah, okay.
So on the red sections, that has a Paisley rating of 4 or less?
It's considered poor.
Right. I'm just making sure when I look at the estimated cost of improvements under table 1.
1 through 4 are poor, correct?
Okay. So we're looking at anywhere just to replace those areas, based on the Paisley rating of, say, 4, it'd be 375,000 per lane mile,
Correct. At the cheap end,
and then all the way up to reconstruction, which would be $1 million per mile.
per lane mile, correct.
The difference between the 1.5 inch and the 2 inch, you know, if you're simply laying that over the top of it, you have all your storms and all that stuff that have to be amended. You don't want to end up having a 2 inch drop.
Certainly. And what would go on is this, the end product, the Appendix B, that will come through, will spit out a list of by year, by total dollar amount, what the recommended areas are for the work. From there, when we're planning ahead, we're getting with Bob and following up on water, sanitary, storm in those same areas for next year, planning ahead, looking at, do they need to be rehabilitated as well, rolling those in the project as part of the project, because it makes no sense to pave the road if the storm's not good or the sanitary. So that's all part of the planning process once this baby gets rolling.
Is that part of the calculus on how much per mile of that
No, that's
lane?
any sanitary, water, or storm improvements are separate and separate pot of money and
Yeah,
separate cost.
from the same wallet, though.
Left pocket or right pocket, correct?
How much money do we have? I know we just had the budget meeting, but,
We just spent a chunk.
no, is it 1 point, what do we have in major? One of the.
In major?
1.5?
I am not certain of what the fund balance is right off the top of
Okay.
my head.
I'm just trying to put things in perspective, how much money we actually have, as opposed to,
Certainly not the 7.5 million.
no.
Which is part of the reason why at the budget work session, I mentioned that part of our decision after tonight is we have to wait and see what the state ballot proposal is, and then potentially as a council, consider whether we do a dedicated street mill, as several of the communities around us have done, for just street improvements. If you look at the city of Wixom, they're a great example. Every 10 years, they pass a dedicated street mill levy. Their streets are in great condition, both residential and their business streets, and they have a street mill levy. The city of Novi, I believe, has a street mill levy as well. I know Milford has looked at one. I don't know whether it passed or not. That was supposed to have been on their last August ballot. So there are several communities just in our surrounding area,
Next door.
yeah, that have gone with a dedicated street mill, so that everybody pays for it and all the streets do get improved.
Are you saying that's something the people would have to vote for?
Yes, it is something that would have to be a ballot proposal.
Yeah.
Because essentially you would be saying you're going to set aside X amount of property mill levy every year for streets and essentially increase the property tax for this entire city for the entire time that that mill levy is approved. That's
Right.
why it goes to the entire public to vote on.
But the situation in Green Oak Township, they weren't getting any money from Livingston County, and that's why, I mean, is that correct? That they were having a hard time getting funding?
They were
from-
having a hard time getting from their county road commission, yes.
I can answer that. They're a township. They don't own their roads. They have no financial interest in their roads. They took it upon themselves to burden their taxpayers to put additional money towards their roads that was not coming from Livingston
Right,
County.
well, that's why they
Commission.
went with the millage, right?
Right.
Mr. Mayor?
Okay, Joe?
Lynn, you spoke about possibly a ballot proposal next year. If you were to recommend that, which election would you target? Would you want the general election or a
We
special?
would be shooting for the April election next year, which is a already established election, so it wouldn't be a special election. That would give us a year to have the council decide what exactly they want to spend and a year to educate the public.
And how many mills would you be going for?
Don't know.
It would depend on what level the council is looking at funding the roads at. And again, it depends on whether the ballot proposal next week passes statewide, because that will have an impact on the city's street funding.
What are we at now, 579 or something for Act 51 money?
574, 655.
Yeah, okay.
They were ready for you. And
Yeah, good job, John.
those are the proposed
Okay,
fundings.
so that is the escalation projected, all right.
Yes.
Oh, that's if it passes.
If it passes.
Because you had suggested 950 gets us in to hold our ground?
Is status quo is just under $1 million, yes.
Now, is the election, is that a product of Headley, or?
No, that's not a product of Headley. That would be similar to when you did the waste, I believe when you dedicated wastewater treatment funds, but it also allows the voters to decide how they want to spend the property tax, because you as a council are deciding to citywide raise the property taxes permanently for a specific period of time and dedicate that funding to a specific cause, which means that mill levy can't disappear no matter how much our assessed valuation goes up. X amount of the mill, whether it's 1 mill or 2 mills, will always every year go towards road funding. And even if our assessed valuation would exceed 400 million like it was before the crash in 2008, we would still be spending or accumulating that into fund balance to improve the roads and do road improvements until the mill levy sunsetted, which is why it does a 10-year or a 15-year sunset. It's only on there for a certain period of time.
You mentioned $1 million just to stay even. What's the $1 million cover?
I think your 1 mill is about 300 and something.
Well, no, I mean, I'm sorry, maybe I misunderstood you. The 1 mil or 1 million to stay, I'm trying to understand what you said earlier.
Sure.
What would 1 million
$1 million
repair?
spent annually is basically maintaining status quo.
I understand that. What would that include as far as status quo? Would that be sealing, plugging, or would that be any resurfacing?
That's every spectrum from joint and crack sealing all the way to reconstruction,
Okay.
all the way across the board.
Well, a lot to think about. I'm all set.
I'm not here looking for an answer tonight.
Right,
I think Lynn's got a great point that it's going to take a work session to sit around and roll up our sleeves and have a good, healthy discussion, how much, how long, if at all those kind of questions. So, but purpose tonight was to share with you the asset management plan, look to get some feedback on a couple of those areas that were highlighted in yellow so that we can then finish the asset management plan, but obviously that's not going to happen tonight and will happen in the near future.
Do you have a feel for what it would cost to get some counts on streets? And, you know, you probably could get some things that were indicators of typical types of streets in subdivisions or whatever, so you could kind of assess what loads are on a typical street.
I certainly get the point, spend the money where the most vehicles travel. Getting traffic counts on every section of roadway is going to get pricey. We could maybe attack it a different way of picking a budget number of $10,000. How many traffic counts could we get through the city that way? We could certainly look at that.
I'm just thinking we could use some common sense and assign common sense to, say, a subdivision, the 2 streets that, you know, are more indicative of that kind of traffic pattern and, you know, kind of project from there.
To be honest, that's a better expenditure of $0 is to sit down. I mean, you guys know, and administration knows the city as well as anybody and can sit down and look at a map, and this is a major thoroughfare, a major cut-through. Let's focus there. This little cul-de-sac that services 7 houses maybe can move down the priority list. But I think that's a work session type thing. And at the end of the day, the Appendix B that's not in this roadway asset management plan is a computer output. That's just, you know, what you put in is what you get out. That output is going to tell you how much joint and crack sealing, how much overlay, how much complete reconstruction. we, with the help of Bob, will have to sit down and say, does that make sense? Maybe we want to move around a few things to get economies of scale and do a couple big reconstructions one year and not do anything the next year, and then the following year hit it hard with joint and crack sealing. That will all, we got to kind of put the personal touch on that computer output. That'll be kind of a massaging thing that'll have to go on between Bob and our office, but that's all part of the equation as well. And then once you do year 1 and 2, then you're looking out at year 3, 4, and 5, and looking and developing that 3-year plan and looking ahead and get your 1 year done, go on and add in the next year to the 3-year program. So that's all have to be done as this thing kind of takes off.
3 years. Yeah,
Exactly.
that's right. This is never fun to talk about, but it unfortunately is a really important thing to talk about.
Some of our roads have only had one layer of asphalt in the history of the city, so that's over the tops of chips and seal.
Well, and we've got a lot of new subs, the newer subs, that haven't had really any address, except for minor repairs here and there, so they're gonna be starting to fall apart.
One of the things that hasn't been pointed out and that I think is very important for the council to look at is there is a significant amount of private roads in the city of South Lyon. And while the city of South Lyon is currently working with several private developments to take on their water and wastewater utilities, there may be a time when those same private developments decide that it's too costly for themselves to maintain their roadways and may ask the city to take those over. And that would be a policy the city would have to consider and costs that the city would have to consider. And there's almost as much blue on these maps as there are yellow and red. And we have no idea what the condition of those roads are currently.
Except the trailer part.
Well, yeah, except for the trailer park. But I think that's a very important thing to consider in the long term is with the amount of private roads that we have in the community, what is the long-term 20 years from now going to look at with the amount of private developments we have?
Okay.
Well, much like, the parallel with the water sewer thing is they have to meet our standards.
Right.
So, there's a number of those roads that simply won't comply. By the time they brought them in to meet our standards, they would have expended a substantial amount of their wealth. So, they'd probably be just as well off to go ahead and fix them then.
Right, but there, like I said, there may be a point in time where people do start asking us to take over those roadways.
And then again, they didn't build them to the proper specs probably.
Some of
They're
them they may
private.
not have, some of them they may have.
Yeah.
Well, each one of those instances is going to have to be individually
No
Assessed.
question about that.
considered.
There's not the same health and safety considerations with that as there is with water sewer also.
Correct.
It's convenience and shedding financial burden.
Potholes for series.
Okay. Anybody else on this subject? Thank you, Mr.
Thanks
Booth.
for the reading material.
Yeah. Okay, number 2 on new business, consider request for permission for the Blues, Brews, and Brats for August 22nd.
I will actually turn this over to Andrea Meyer, who is the Executive Director of the Chamber, and to Chief Collins. I think the two of them can handle this.
Hello, Andrea Meyer on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce. Just respectfully requesting of the council that we be allowed to hold the Blues, Brews, and Brats Festival August 22nd at the location that it was held last year, which is the Whipple Street parking lot. Bear with me, I'm new.
You look at the map on that, it's a little bit different than the setting the last time.
Is it? Stage
Stage is over in the far corner now.
Oh, I was going to say something.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think this is a great event for the city. I went the past couple of years and it seemed like there's plenty of room for stage, plenty of room for people to get in and out, no crowding or any issues such as that. And no, I think it's good. I hope to see it continue on for many years. So thank you.
Great.
And I'd like to I'll make the motion then, to allow permission for Blues, Brews, and Brats on August 22nd, 2015.
I'll support.
Further discussion?
Yeah, there's a couple of conflicting, road closure comments in one piece of literature, and there's no road closure, so it's essentially just for setup, I'm assuming?
That was I originally had submitted information to Chief and also Chief Kennedy. Because I'd gotten feedback from the community, they wanted to hold it where it had been originally out in front. But Chief Kennedy and Chief Collins were really clear, so I got a really good understanding of, they weren't in support of that just because of the egress, that was needed, and I got a very good understanding of why that would, kind of be a mess if we held it there again. So that was speaking to that. This is,
Okay.
nothing's clothing.
I just noticed the conflicting terms and wanted to make sure that was clear that
Okay.
there isn't a road closure.
All in favor to grant this permission for the Blues, Brews, and Brats on August 22nd, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, managers report.
Thanks.
Just have a couple of things for the council tonight. Was contacted and will probably be sending out some information to you. We have a local business that has asked to have the alley behind his business paved. I felt that it was kind of a relevant subject, considering we were discussing the asset management, but it's not something we do. We don't have a lot of alleys within the community, but it is a downtown business, and so it's something, he couldn't be here this evening because as the owner, he had to work, but he was going to try and put something together in writing for me to submit to the council. So I hopefully will have that for the next meeting. You also
Do we know what the business is?
it's the party store on
Sunny.
Lafayette?
Lafayette.
It's a mess back there.
You also have in your packet, it doesn't really need approval, it was just for information. Chief Collins gave it to me. The Historic Society submitted for the annual Depot Days. We want to give them as much publicity as possible. It is Saturday, September 12th this year. I know they're looking forward to it, and so am I, and it's going to be a great event. Doesn't need any closures or anything like that, so it's just an informational item in your packet. Lastly, I provided to each of you, I believe, a copy of the 15-16 budget for RSAC, the Recycling Authority. We just approved that at the meeting last week, and wanted to inform the council that I was appointed the treasurer of the organization at the meeting last week. And that is all this evening.
Mr. Mayor, I hate to do this, but I want to, if I may, I'd like to bring an issue up to council quickly. Given that we have two council members absent, and per the roll call vote, it was 3-2, as I understood, on the medical marijuana ordinance. Section 13.4 of the charter indicates that a majority of the council is quorum. And then it states that the concurring vote of a majority of such established number of members of each such council shall be necessary for official action by it.
So we need 4.
Which the way I read that is that the established number pertains to the full number of council members that exist, and you would need a 4 votes in favor to approve that motion or take any action. So I do think that's an open issue, given its unusual
Sat
language.
around for long enough, it's not going to matter. Wait till next meeting, I guess.
So one way would be to leave it as is, one way would be if one of the
Well, if it's
3 members would make a motion to reconsider, that could be then tabled and preserve it to the following meeting.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Yeah, I'll second. To reconsider?
I thought it had to be the no voters that did that.
No, the prevailing
Perfect.
voters.
No,
So-
the bad part, the losers would do it endlessly.
So unfortunately, I think it's fairly typical under Robert's rules that once you have a quorum present, the majority of that quorum is typically only a majority of the quorum is required to take action. This language draws into question whether the required vote is of the established number of members of council, which would be 4, or the established number for a quorum per section 13.4.
I know that when we had the supermajority for picking up an action item during a meeting at the same meeting, that it needed to end up being the 5. But that's the first time this has ever come forward, that an ordinary action approval would end up needing that supermajority.
Well, and it's not a supermajority, it's complicated by the absences on council tonight, which changes the,
Yeah, I'm sorry, just.
and it's really related to the language and what the phrase established number of members means, whether it's the quorum or the full council. So if anybody is willing to move forward with the reconsideration, what I would suggest is that there be a motion to postpone this to the following meeting until I can do further research on, I did look up quickly, I was able to find a couple of Attorney General opinions that reference this type of issue. So I would like the opportunity to do the additional research and provide an interpretation on what vote is required on this issue.
We're not holding anybody up from getting one going, so what the heck?
On that point, the moratorium will expire on May 27th, and I believe there's 2 council meetings before that date.
That's
Well,
all right, it
yeah, I'm
expired for a year at one point, it didn't matter.
I motion, or make a motion, we table it to the next meeting.
Yeah,
We haven't,
Oh,
yeah, there's a motion for reconsideration.
what are we waiting for?
You're waiting on the vote on the reconsideration.
Yeah, let's call a vote.
So if you're saying we vote to reconsider this,
How-
then you're gonna make that motion about tabling it,
Yeah, I can't make that motion until we reconsider it.
all right?
How many people do you need as a majority to reconsider? Vote 4? 5? 5? Sorry, I missed that.
It would need to be, under that, well, yes, it would need to be.
It just becomes
4 votes.
circular.
Approve the use of the open street.
You have to have 4 votes to approve that motion
All
for
right.
reconsideration.
My
Because it's
thought
an
is we do it
ordinance.
right, so I mean,
It's an
if,
ordinance.
the bottom line is I don't see
Greater
a change.
scrutiny.
But if there is a change, well, I guess we'll find out, but if there isn't gonna be a change, then maybe we'll withdraw the motion for reconsideration, let's do it right, and find out what we'll just postpone it to the next meeting till Tim can, that's my thought. I mean, I don't wanna be in a
Yeah.
position where we vote and we just keep going round and round, and then we don't know the answer to the question. What's needed.
All right, I'm rescinding my motion. I'd like to make a motion that we table it to the next meeting.
How can that happen if
There's
we've
no-
already passed it?
Right.
We need to do.
Well, that's kind of where I was going the first time.
I agree.
Yeah,
I'm
so-
agreeing with you. So
Well,
on
or
a
if
simple
it-
majority to reconsider, if you reconsider, then the main question is back before us, just as the motion and second was. And then a motion to postpone to a date certain is appropriate, and we can do that.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, so
Yes.
the result, there's an ambiguity regarding whether the motion passed or not on a 3-2 vote. So one interpretation is that it did pass with a majority of the quorum. The other alternative is that it failed for not meeting the required 4-vote minimum. So there's nothing pending before the council. The motion for reconsideration, my interpretation is generally that the motion for reconsideration is available at the next council meeting, but having seen the issue, a motion for reconsideration would, if approved, would put the vote or the motion to approve as proposed with the 2 amended provisions before the council, and it could be tabled until I can get some additional research and guidance to you.
I mean, we can do that, or we can leave it right where it is. You come up with whatever you think the ultimate correct answer is, whether or not it's been approved or if we're in a stalemate.
Yeah.
And we could get the answer at our next meeting.
That is a possibility, and I don't think that a failed motion would preclude the council from considering a second reading again.
Majority is 3, because it was kind of fixed.
In my opinion, I don't know, it seems like we voted on it. If we could wait till the next meeting, I would prefer that. I don't think it's necessary to reconsider tonight.
We're not intending to reconsider it. We wanted to do that simply to
Right, I understand.
take care of the legal part of it.
But he can still do that without, I get it.
You can only do that, you can only do that at the same meeting or the next legislative day, which would be our next meeting. And it requires only a majority vote. Reconsider.
So you made a motion?
I rescinded that motion. Let's just go on, wait till the next meeting.
Okay. Are you satisfied with that?
The motion fails for lack of support? Is that,
No, I supported it.
is it
I'll
being,
rescind my support.
is it being withdrawn?
It's now, fails for lack of support. Okay.
That's as clear as mud?
I'm sorry, I'll try and get an answer to this.
Well, it is kind of a goofy thing. I mean, I don't blame you.
It's unusual language in the charter.
Well, you don't have your husband die every week either, you know?
That's one.
Yeah. Okay, Glenn, you want to fire away?
Okay, the sign ordinance that we had addressed with the church, unfortunately, somewhere there was a communication glitch that what was desired from the church wasn't able to be accomplished by what planning had come up with the new language for that particular corridor of activity. Personally, I'm stricken with the idea that why we have the additional restrictions. I like us to kind of unbridle as much as we can businesses to be able to, I mean, I can understand putting a size limitation on it, but the idea that you obligate them to the 1/3 of the sign face for the digital medium just seems bizarre to me. If someone doesn't want to have whatever accessory stuff and they're limited by that 1/3 for putting the digital sign in, but they don't want to have the 2/3 of just stuff, just so that they fulfill the language of that ordinance. I think that's an unfortunate thing. I think it's unfortunate that the church now has to apply for a variance to accomplish the simple thing of changing letters that someone has to walk out there, unlock the light box, switch the letters, and walk back into the church when they could have simply programmed the thing to do the exact same thing. Seems kind of ridiculous to me. So I'd like to, and I had talked to some of them, and one of the things when I talked with Carmen, his concern was video. You know, it'll give them an opportunity to present video on there, and then we're kind of hostage to monitoring the video. Well, video is already prohibited in our, well, it's already prohibited in our ordinances. So, and with technology being what it is, the notion of having to have these archaic light boxes like what our sign is in the park that is so limiting with just fixed dots of light rather than having a TV screen with the ability to have an endless level of fonts, colors, whatever, just as a digital package rather than spotting things so that the text lands on where the light bulbs are. It seems archaic, an archaic approach to the whole thing. I'd like to have us have them revisit that discussion about our sign ordinance. And it's unfortunate because they just went through this whole thing, and we just approved it. And I feel bad that I didn't pick up on the nuance of that at the time, but I didn't, so I'm bringing that now. And secondly, the art gallery in the lobby over Saturday was really very nice. Seeing some of the kids that had presented some of that art out there was really cool. Some really talented folks, and the art commission did a nice job in putting that whole package together. So that's all I had. Thanks.
Okay. All right, Joe?
I just had one question for, actually, Bob, with the, I received some emails and some, I'll say, complaints about Volunteer Park. I know we talked about it briefly. I drove through there the other day. It seemed like there was a lot of divots in the road still. Have they made it out there yet, or is there something we can do to make it a little more
We
smooth?
put gravel out there. It's drying up. We backbladed it. It's a work in progress, Joe. We're going to keep trying to get that better and better.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Roads on a swamp.
Yeah, it's tough. It's
Yeah.
bottom out, yeah.
Harvey?
I'm good, thank you.
Mike?
Yeah, on our next council meeting, I'd like to add to our agenda, or put on the agenda, a discussion or consideration of establishing emails for city council members through the city. That's all I have.
Okay.
Hey, Ted, can I add one thing? We need to get an evaluation going. Let's set a date for that, for our city manager.
Well, then let's set that at the next meeting then.
I'm cool with that.
Okay, several things, but I'll try to be quick. I want to thank Bob Martin for coming up with the beautiful red maple that we planted in Paul Baker Park, and for Arbor Day, and also I did dedicate it to Sven Hilmetsen of Denmark. And the people who came out was wonderful. All the department heads came out for that dedication, merchants, citizens. I thank every one of them on short notice for coming out and making it, of course, a beautiful day helped. But it was a nice cause, and of course we are a tree city, and it's another beautiful red maple that will be here in town. Also, the Chamber having the community awards this Wednesday. Our South Lyon Fire Department and South Lyon Police Department are being honored, as well as one of our local businesses in Brown's Root Beer. And I don't know if any of you are you making it? Are you, great, great, great. That'll be Wednesday. And then on the school bond coming up, and will be coming up before we have another meeting, I just wanted to state, so people understand what the school bond is about. It extends a tax rate that is still the same. It would remain the same. It does not add anything to it, except in the long run would add more school buildings and so forth, but your taxes would remain the same. It just extends the bond that's been going on for many years now. Also, the art show you referred to is still going on, so people can still come into City Hall until May 15th. They will leave it set up so people can still come in and see that here, and that's kind of nice. And let's see. We want to extend our best to Bev in the loss of her family member of 66 years. She lost her husband last week, and how's she doing? It's tough. It's tough going. And our thoughts and prayers are with Bev Dixon. And with that, I would like to call for adjournment.
Move that we adjourn.
Support.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. That ends this meeting of 1 hour and 20 minutes.